Hey YouTube, Douglas here. I decided today I'm going to do a review on this nostalgic gem, Spy Kids. Directed by Robert Rodriguez, written by Robert Rodriguez, and starring Alexa Vega, Daryl Sabera, Antonio Banderas, Carla Gugino, how do you pronounce it? Alan Cumming, Terry Hatcher, Cheech Marin, Danny Trejo, with Robert Patrick and Tony Shalhoub. This was released in 2001, I believe. Let me check here. Yep, 2001. Rated PG, G, and is considered a nostalgia piece. Here's the Blu-ray disc. The first time I saw this movie was on Disney XD back in the day, back in the early 2010s when Disney XD became a thing. And I mean, I already knew about the second film because I saw the trailer for the second film on Lilo and Stitch tape I had when I was a kid. And then I saw the second film on Disney XD as well later on in the 2010s. And I watched the third film as well at that point. I did not watch the fourth film. I have no intention of watching the fourth film. For a very good reason, because I heard that film sucked balls. So we're just going to talk about this film for now. It's the plot of the film. Well, this film was made because Rob Rodriguez apparently heard that after he gets heard from a fan's kid who was 6 years old. They watched Desperado because Robert Rodriguez at the time was known for making hardcore R-rated action films. He felt a little guilty about it, so he decided to make some kiddie movies. So he made Spy Kids, Shark Boy, Lava Girl, and Shorts. The third of those I only watched one time back in 2009, and I haven't watched it since. But then after that, he went back to hardcore action flicks. So yeah, let's talk about this. So, in the film, Banderas and Carla Guigno's characters are these two spies who have retired to start a family, as shown at the beginning of the film, where in the first scene of the film shows Carla Guigno telling her kids about the story, which is obviously which should be basically her secretly telling them the story about her husband's marriage, showing that they were two spies who were sent after each other, but after they counted each other, they fell in love and secretly dated before proposing, and then it shows them at their wedding, but then their employers attack them, but they evade the attack and successfully get married, and then it cuts to them now with their kids. Yeah. Their kids here are older sister Carmen, played by Alexa Vega, and younger brother Junie, played by Daryl Sabera. Sabera, I've seen some other stuff, like he was in the Halloween 2007 remake, and he was in an episode of Wizards of Waverly Place, and he voiced Rex in Generator Rex, which I still need to get to watch. And they do alright with their roles. They do what they can. I mean, they were kids at the time, so I'm not going to go too hard on their acting. I'm not going to be like the people that were absolute bullies towards Jake Lloyd. Look at you, prequel haters. I still have yet to forgive you for the way you treated Jake Lloyd on my best, but that's a story for another day. Anyway, so with their dynamic, June, well, as far I don't. Well, Julian Dafoe has been more developed initially in the film than it is because it shows that he's got warts on his fingers, which he has to put like this tape on to help with. He's also a fan of this show called Floops, who the host is played by Alan Cumming here. Who again I've seen a few things, like he was in GoldenEye, for example, as the one technician who worked for the villain who'd always say, "I'm invincible." And he was also Nightcrawler in X2, and unfortunately he was Loki and Son of the Mask. Sadly for him, who has a children's show where he has these weird-looking creatures on there called Fooglies, which are like the characters in it. But then we find out that Floop's actually working for this evil businessman played by Robert Patrick, who I like Robert Patrick. He was the T-1000 Judgment Day, my favorite action film. And Cummings' performance in this film honestly made me think that he should have played Willy Wonka in the Tim Burton film instead of Johnny Depp, because he does a pretty, because he honestly does do a pretty good job playing this whimsical dude, this energetic, whimsical dude who has a sincere nature to him. Well, I'll get to why I'm saying it like that if he's supposed to be the villain, because later he's not. But yeah, he's apparently gotten commissioned by this evil businessman to create like something for him, which he unveils to be robot kids made up of kids of officials' kids, something like that. But unfortunately he can't. Unfortunately he can't make the kids, at least give them a better intellectual level, unless he can get this thing called the third brain to be able to increase their IQ levels. So that is why I also do like kind of like the design of his castle in the middle of the ocean. I like how his throne is like a hand with these little faces on the fingers. And he's also got these henchmen, which are called thumb thumbs, which are these like giant thumb creatures, which I think I heard was based on something Robert Rodriguez drew when he was a kid, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, well, and we eventually find out that the creatures he has on the show, Fooglies, are actually agents who work in the company and work in the field that Banderas and Guigno work in, who got metamorphized into them when they tried, because they kidnapped them. So I think they said that they kidnapped them so they can force them to what their brain was, but they didn't know, so they transformed them into those things until further notice or something. I'm just guessing that was what the deal was with that. Anyway, anyway, so after that we get a bit where when they're driving to school, we have the kids bickering, which is pretty much typical sibling bickering, like with Daryl Sabera trying to annoy his sister by mimicking her voice, and he's getting annoyed. Like, it's typical sibling bickering, that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, they're watching on this TV they have in the car, Flip's show, and somehow how Banderas puts together somehow that the one new creature on that show is another agent that he captured, with this agent played by Mike Judge, who, if you don't know, is the creator and lead voice actor in Beavis and Butthead King of the Hill, who has a bit of a bigger role in the next two films, which I'll get to one day. So, we go to school. They have this one little subplot that didn't go anywhere, where Banderas sees his son being picked on, and then he then when the bully's dad gets into tries to goad him, he imagines himself kicking the bully's dad's ass, and then but then shows regret that he couldn't stand up for himself because of him having to hide spy, which doesn't really go anywhere. Sadly, like it could have been interesting, but they sadly don't really go anywhere with that, which is a shame. And honestly, Antonio Banderas' missing the old days thing that they're going with him kind of remind me a little bit of Mr. Incredible and The Incredibles missing the old days with him in his midlife crisis mode. But it's kind of different here because he does successfully convince his. Well, actually, Banderas tells his wife he wants to go back in the field. His wife not only was okay with that, unlike Elastigirl, who was reluctant, who wanted to settle down, Guino is actually okay with it and actually wants to join him. So they they decide to go on this mission. So they hire their Asian friend, and who I guess is supposed to be pretending to be the kid's uncle, played by Cheech Marin, from Cheech and Chong. Take care of them, and one thing I have. I'm gonna say So I also do think it was kind of funny with that Banderas, when he's going, that slips on this fake mustache just so he can look cooler, or at least look young. I don't know, something about him slipping on a fake mustache is maybe up. Sorry about that. Something weird just happened. Anyway, back to the video. Oh yeah, in the original script, Cheech Marin's character was actually supposed to be the butler for the kids, but he had the original script, but in the film they changed that by making him the fake uncle, which I'll get to in a sec. So Banderas and Guino go on a car that can turn into a submarine, and then they easily get caught by Alan Cumming. Before they send out for the kids and the fake uncle, who because they send these ninja thumb soldiers after them, which break into the house and takes down Cheech Marin while the kids escape in this pretty cool submarine thing that, when I was a kid, I kind of wish I had that. Like, I'll show you what it looks like quickly. This, I kind of like how it's kind of shaped like a fish. Like, the thing in the back looks like a fish tail. So it chases. So they get chased by the ninja thumbs, and they bicker a little bit before they close the thing. And then the next 5 minutes is not really much going on. It's just them hanging around in the pod, talking to each other a little bit, taking a nap, and this dumb joke about Joseph Barra taking a crap. The light. Sorry, I'm filming by a window here. Anyways, so back at Cummings' castle, it's shown that he's got this henchman, played by Tony Shalhoub, who's literally called Minion. I'm not kidding. That's actually the guy's name. Who you might know from stuff like Men in Black Polly, and Monk and Galaxy Quest and stuff. And Beerus and Guido try to escape, but they get caught again, and then Kame explains to them why he has them kidnapped, because he wants the third brain, and then he turns Cheech Marin into one of those creatures. And he shows that he does it by taking this clay and then turning the clay into this grotesque head or something, and turns it into the creature. Also, another thing that's kind of consistent is that the puzzle pieces on the floor in his place, sometime early in the film, when it seemed like an optical illusion that it was all falling apart, but really there was like a glass pane there to prevent it from falling. But later in the film, when the kids go on the glass on that area, the one falls down the pit for some reason, even though earlier you didn't fall down the pit. I don't know what was with that. Anyway, so the kids get to an outhouse, which is actually a pretty cool outhouse. Like, it's one of those things that's, well, not an outhouse, it's a safe house. They do the whole trick of bigger on the inside, and on the inside, they got stuff like, they have to do this little gimmick where Alexa Vega opens the cupboards, and there's nothing there. She closes it, you hear a sound, she opens it, and the stuff's there. And these jetpacks they have there remind me a little bit of the Super Battle Droids from Star Wars prequel era. Right. If you know what I'm talking about. Also, another thing that was in the script that they cut out for the film was them having this dog, that one of the tech stuff there made the dog talk, which was not in the final film, which I believe was reused for Spy Kids 4, which, again, I didn't see for obvious reasons. But they also have this thing in the film, like, if you remember Back to the Future Part 2, and they put that little Pizza Hut thing in the oven, and it made instant Pizza Hut. They have kind of a bit like that at Spy Kids, where they put a bag in the microwave and it makes like instant McDonald's meal deal, which I thought was pretty cool. Like, the film, despite because Spy Kids doesn't have too many gadgets in it, but the ones they do have, I kind of appreciate and think are pretty cool, even if they're not completely imaginative. And we get like a brief montage where the two kids try to train a little bit and get all their gear together, and then in this bitch where Darris Bear gets his hand cuffed to this metal trunk that he can't get off, which is And before they get met by these people, the leader of them, played by Terry Hatcher, who claimed they're with their parents, but then it turns out she's actually working for Floop and Minion. But here's the thing that bugs me. She's trying to manipulate them, yet she has no problem saying out loud, look around, we couldn't find it at the house, indicating they searched their house. So in a way, she kind of already outed themselves by implying they ransacked their house. Not only that, they were, besides Darris Bear looking out the window and seeing them destroying their sub, that she basically gave away their true intentions. So I'm not surprised when Darris Bear tells his sister that she's evil, that she immediately sides with him on that. So they get into this okay fight where one of the guys at one point tries to jump and catch Dr. Vega, but he gets his fingers hit by the fan on the ceiling. Not chopped off, it's like the wooden fan on the ceiling at home. So it's not like his fingers got chopped off. It just hurts his fingers is all. And then they escape on a jetpack. Spare tries to escape on one, but backfires and burns off Terry Thatcher's hair, and then she doesn't appear in the movie till like the third act. And the two kids escape in a pretty cool chase sequence, all things considering. Although the blue screen was pretty lackluster. Oh yeah, then we cut to a bit where Alan Cumming is practicing for his show. Alan Cumming Floop in this blue screen area that I mean, as a kid, I was singing a song called "Dream My Dream If You Dream My Dream," which I admit I did get into as a kid, and I remember listening to that on my local library's computers when I was a kid, back in the good old days. Yeah, and then he complains to Tony Shalhoub about how his show's not doing as well as he wants it to. But then things get a little interesting because then the kids find out, argue what to do with the brain before they encounter. Because it turns. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. Back at the place, Dirce Bear folds down like this picture of their parents, and it causes this thing to open up the third brain they need. And we get a little part that explains the backstory of how that brain exists. It turned out it was a project they were working on, according to the Banderas was helping working on. But eventually, after the department thought that the brain was too dangerous, was told to destroy all of them. But Banderas preserved his brain and pretended and just smashed a walnut in its place for, I guess. Although they don't explain why he preserved it, I kind of wish they did. It would have made it a bit more interesting to me of his motivations. But that's just me. So when the kid's at the playground of the brain, Dirce Bear wants to destroy it, so Floop can get his hands on it, but Alexa Vega wants to preserve it because she uses a bargaining chip for their parents before she storms off and gets in. And then we get this cool action sequence where they get confronted by the robot clones of them. Who I must admit are pretty intimidating. Although Alexa Vega's this is one stupid bit where after she punches the thing and it hurts her hand, she then decides to headbutt the thing, and I'm like, if punching it didn't do crap, what makes you think headbutting is gonna do anything? And thanks to her stupidity, she ends up getting concussion and faints. Then the other clone robot fights. Then the clone robots fight Dirce Bear on this merry-go-round thing, and they steal the brain from him, and then when we get back, here's where things get a little mixed for me. Out of nowhere, Alan Cummings' character Floop decides that he's not interested in doing the whole take over the world thing, and would rather just get back to his show. And then Tony Shalhoub decides he's taking over, and he imprisons Alan Cummings. So which when I first I was like, what? So what? Because all of it between me, it looked like Alan Cumming here was the villain, but now all of a sudden he's just on serious momentarily demoted, and now suddenly Shalhoub's the villain now. Like, what? I just thought it was a little weird that you would out of nowhere swap villains just like that. It just kind of makes what you were setting up and the way you presented Alan Cummings' character earlier in the film kind of pointless, as making this big mastermind to him. Because to me, him look like a big mastermind. Now he's suddenly just not that. It's just a weird, jarring shift for me. So after that, the kids, I think, using this old picture from their parents' wedding album, find their real uncle, which is played by Danny Trejo, who's been in plenty of Rodriguez films in the past. Although, I'm also pointing this film because he didn't get to do much in this film. Actually, most of the 3 films didn't get to do much. Like, they don't get many action sequences with him, or much really with Trejo. Like, when they go to see Trejo, he's basically just... I mean, Trejo, he's bitter about... He's estranged and bitter from his brother, played by his brother, and apparently he's willing to give their brother for a reason that he never explained. And he refuses to help them on their mission, despite showing them his gadget. Another thing that kind of implies that he had a history with Floop, like, because there's a picture on his table, and Daryl Sabera questions Trejo on it, but Trejo doesn't respond, says grabs the picture. That also is never brought up again. Which I'm like, why would you have that in the film and you don't bring it up again? And he also somehow has a map of Floop's castle, which, again, it's not explaining how or why he has the map. It's just there. And so, which I'm a little annoyed about that they don't go into much, that they have stuff like that in the film, they don't go into much detail explaining that. So we only get a montage with the kids repeatedly asking Trejo for help, him saying no. Oh, and then he lets them stay at his place for the night. Though I'm kind of wondering what he's going to do with them after that. Like, since he refused to save his brother, he's going to take care of the kids, but refused to save his brother or whatever? I don't know what's with that. So, but instead of the kids at nighttime, they steal some of his gear and a bit too easily steal the map from him, because for some reason, instead of putting it in a safe or something, he holds on to it while he's sleeping, and he swap it out with this little tiki thing. Something that Pirates of the Caribbean Damien's chest would kinda also do in the scene where Will steals the thing from Davy Jones. So they take Trejo's plane thing, which is only one seating, and on the way, the two bicker. But this one part that annoys me is that this one bit is totally Alexa Vargas' fault, because when they're arguing, she shoves him and makes him hit the side of this rock formation, and then she's like mad at him for him. I'm like, lady, you knocked him into it. This is not his fault. It's yours for shoving him into the thing. And that's never brought up again. She never apologizes for that. That kind of annoyed me. But after they're bickering and the plane getting destroyed, they're forced to eject. And we get a joke about pee because of the water feeling warm as they're swimming into the fortress. And they get in and take out one of the thumb bots and gain information from the creatures the spies are turned into about what their parents are, before the kids get separated, and where There's a Bear meets Alan Cumming and the two befriend each other. So so then they find the parents, and they find the dad gets turned into some weird gingerbread man thing, but they undo that quickly, and then meanwhile, Tony Shalhoub invites Robert Patrick back so he can show them that they got the robots ready for him. And then we get Terry Hatcher returning with half her hair gone. And this is where things get a little weirder. When Tony Shalhoub confronts the family, they strap him onto the machine that turns into those creatures. And what they turn into is this thing where it's got like 3 heads. You got 2 heads here, 1 here. This one here is all twisted up. I'm still thinking, how did freaking Monk agree to that? That design choice of that weird head. And he's now his voice on helium because Robert Patrick asks what everyone's thinking. What happened to your head? And he's like, don't worry, I'm just and I know that head smile. Also, I just realized I've been talking so much what I didn't. I haven't talked about too much what I did. I did. I said I like the gadgets. Some of the acting's good. Like, I do like Alan Cummings acting in the film. He does a good job. Shalhoub does alright. Of course, Robert Patrick does great. The action scenes are pretty decent. Although they could have been choreographed a little better. But I understand for time and budget. For time, budget, and for making sure this is a kiddie film, you had to draw back some stuff. So, the kids go find their parents who can get captured again. Yeah, get used to this. Happens quite a bit in the film. And then they get into a fight with their robot clones who they defeat. And a pretty cool sequence where they're supposed to be overpowered by his clone, but his sister tells him that she's stronger, and he gets his comments back and takes out the rope, and the two take out the robots before they confront the villains in the main throne room. And then here's the thing that kind of bugs me. They set this up to be like a pretty epic final battle between the family and the robots. Heck, even Danny Trejo busts in to help. But instead, they have it that Alan Cumming resets them, and they instead just go around and start throwing Terry Hatcher, Tony Shalhoub, and Robert Patrick up in the air. So I'm like, well, that was a waste of a final fight. But yeah, the family reconcile, and then we have a bit the end where the head of the agency, played by George Clooney, tries to recruit them for a mission, and that's that. Yeah. Well, I do enjoy this film. I kind of wish there was a bit more meat to it. Like, I'm not saying it has to be hardcore complex. Like, it doesn't have to be like a Star Trek complex. But I felt there could have been some deeper stuff in the film. I mean, I guess for kids, but again, there's been plenty of kids stuff that have deeper meanings and stuff to them. I just feel like this film could have gone a little deeper than it was. And I do think it's funny that all 3 of these films, they have like these big name actors, because there's an because like in the next film you also get Steve Buscemi, and you also get Bill Paxton and stuff, and then the third film you get Sylvester Stallone. Oh yeah, you also get Ricardo Montalban. I think it's funny how many big actors Rodriguez hired for these films. And again, I also like the design of Floop's castle here. I mean, the interior design with the thumbs and the puzzle piece floors and the chair and stuff. I would like all that. And yeah, I'd say it's a solid but flawed film overall. Hope you enjoyed this review. Turn in for more, and if you want me to re-review this, let me know. Know if you weren't entirely satisfied with this, because I can do some re-reviews if you want. And have a good day.